Alright, PoE 2 has been out for a little over a month now, about a month and a half, and I'm just going to go over my thoughts on the current state of the game. So, it's not going to be like a full first impression thing. I'm not going to go over every little thing. Like, for example, I'm not going to include, like, the boss fights are really, really good in this list because I've known that since day 2. Actually, I've known that since before the game released. These are just things that I still think about now and aren't just like things I discovered over a month ago. It's not a full review of the game. It's the current state of the game and like long-term issues and pros that will occur. And I'm gonna treat this a little bit differently than I do most games. You're probably gonna think I'm seeming less harsh than I do for other games like Last Epoch, but GGG has precedent and a really, really good track record with actually changing the game and implementing new stuff. So most of these problems are going to just be from it being early access, and basically I know it will eventually get done, so I'm not going to be like super, super harsh because these other games that have these problems have had these problems for 5+ years. I do not think PoE 2 will have these problems for a really long term like the other games. I mean, pretty much every other ARPG has just like really basic things that are very hindering to the core gameplay and have not been addressed for many years. So, pros. I like the actual Atlas system. I think there is a lot of potential around it. I think it's way cooler than the PoE 1 system. I know a lot of people just want to like put in the one map they want to run over and over and over and over and over again and directly choose it, but I like the idea of exploring the Atlas, and there could be some new things on it. Like they could do like weather, and that will change the maps of the zone to be like, well, lightning stuff in it, lightning monsters, more lightning modifiers on the gear drops, maybe some uniques that only drop in a lightning zone. I like to see more ways of like target farming like that. I like them to expand the biomes to get specific things in specific biomes, so you know where to go, and then a way to kind of choose where to go, because right now it's kind of random, right? I like to see a way that you can kind of influence what biomes will appear. That might be difficult because it might be all generated at once or something, and it might be like just seeded or something, but I don't know, something there could be interesting. The campaign is good. I mean, like, this is something, I mean, the campaign hasn't changed a bit. It's better than it was. I don't know if I'd quite put the campaign into pro. I mean, it definitely is, but for long term, I think it could use a little bit less RNG on getting res capped and stuff like that. Over farming, and maybe they just don't want it to be a part of the game, but it's a bit too RNG heavy still. Now you can like swap your runes around and stuff, so it's significantly better, but what if you just don't drop the rune you want? I guess you could trade, but like really early on it might not be feasible. And I don't really think the game should be balanced around SF either, but I don't think it's really great to have campaign completion so RNG heavy where I don't even, I mean, I don't know. I think it'd be tough to do a race right now in campaign. It's pretty RNG heavy. Like, you can just get screwed if you get screwed, right? There's nothing you can really do. Another pro is that you're going to become a pro at programming with boot.dev, today's sponsor. Hey you, do you know what I'm selling? Knowledge. But it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It'll take some time, as boot.dev has an extensive curriculum that goes in depth on both theory and practice for learning to code, so you'll gain a solid understanding. Learn back-end development start to finish in Python and Go languages for programming. The biggest detriment to learning is boredom, so they make sure you're never bored by implementing RPG-like mechanics such as XP's levels, quests, a global leaderboard to climb. So it's time to start grinding that boot.dev ladder just like in an ARPG, but at the same time you'll actually be gaining valuable knowledge. But wait, there's more. Boot.dev never wants a student to feel like they aren't getting their money's worth, so there is a 30-day, no questions asked, none at all refund policy All of the content is also free to read and check out in guest mode. Go to boot.dev and use my code DSLily to get 25% off your first year if you choose the annual plan. Besides the bugs, the game seems pretty decent for hardcore. It's pretty well balanced. In fact, I think it should probably be even a bit harder, but it's pretty hardcore friendly. Oh, I actually need to write down this. That just made me think of a con, but I'll get that out later. So the actual gameplay itself, still in the pros, by the way. Actual gameplay itself feels quite good, even if the endgame just feels like PoE 1.5 right now. It's still quite good, nice, fun, chunky hits, good sound effects, good visual effects. Feels pretty smooth. There's some choppiness, but overall pretty smooth. I really like the combo gameplay. It feels very good. I mean, I've always been a 2-button enjoyer in PoE 1, but I think combo gameplay can open up some more interesting like build variety and archetypes and just overall theory crafting. It's another layer of making a build. Like, oh, what skills am I going to use together that will interact well? Right now it's pretty basic, but when they add more skills and items over time, I think it will really bring the build making up to the next level. Art is still 5 times ahead of every other game. Like, I think the art is just like infinitely better in this game than any other ARPG. Probably infinitely better than most video games in general. I think their art team really nailed it on every single front. So, cons. I'll go with the one I just wrote down. This is going to be a very minor con for most people and probably won't even care, but cheat death. I really hate cheat death stuff, and there's cheat death omens in the game that when you hit, I mean, they're not like exactly cheat death, but like if you hit low life, they instantly heal you to full and refill your flash charges or whatever. Yeah, I do not like that at all, especially in hardcore. In softcore, I don't really care. In hardcore, I don't think that really has any place there. So, and then getting into the rest of these are pretty much alts because it's early access, and this will change by the time of full release, but there's not enough content for super long-term playing. There's definitely enough content for like an early access kind of game, but long-term I'm kind of like wondering what I want to do at this point. Kind of stumbling around, trying different, like I'm starting to do campaign runs because, I mean, there's not much to do in an endgame. You just like do breach, you know, one-shot the bosses. You run out of things to do. It's buggy. Again, early access thing. It'll eventually not be so buggy. I mean, it'll always be a little buggy. The game is really complicated. There'll always be bugs, but it is quite buggy right now. This is a pretty big one. As good as the campaign is, if they don't do real innovation for the gameplay loop, people are, no matter, like, it is such a good campaign, but people are gonna end up getting sick of it once we're 5 leagues in, just like every other ARPG. You know, you do something a million times, you're gonna get sick of it eventually. I would really like to see them, like, I don't think flipping layouts or whatever they're planning on doing is gonna do anything for most people. Like, most people aren't going to be memorizing layouts anyways. So they're probably not even gonna notice that. I don't know. I feel like somebody has to innovate the ARPG campaign. I don't think skipping it is a good solution. I made this comparison a few days ago in another video, but it's like you have a brain tumor and it's like really superficial. You can get to it super easy. No symptoms, no consequences of removing it. But while it's still there, it's making your arm like twitch every now and then and spaz out. And it's not good for your arm. Your arm is messed up because of it. So instead of removing the brain tumor with no consequence, they cut off their arm. That's basically what saying is delete the campaign or a campaign skip is. I don't think it's a good idea. I think like there should be an actual innovation here instead of just skipping it. Like, I don't know, if they introduce more roguelike mechanics, something to make it different when you do it. Because no matter what, you'll get sick of it, right? Running blank maps, like maps with no extra content on them, to run to towers, to run juice maps, sucks setting it up. Like, you're basically just wasting time running to all these towers, right? It could, in some instances, it could take you over an hour to get to all of them, depending on the layouts you get and the build you're running, and how many towers there are. And then, on top of that, you might also want to run the bad layout, so it doesn't put the mechanics on those. I don't know. Overall, that doesn't feel very good. Build variety is pretty meh right now. I mean, most of it's because, like, this is like 30% of the total content the game will have on release. We're missing a bunch of skill gems, we're missing weapon types. But there's also too many OP/bugged builds that invalidate normal skills. Like Archmage, and apparently some shockwave stuff that makes like slams do way more damage or something. I don't really know what that one is, but you know, there is bug builds. Yeah, I'm brain lagging. I can't think of anything specific right now, but yeah, you know, there's quite a few bug builds. Defense variety is very bad. Pretty much every build just gets energy shield and evasion and then Grim Feast, and boom, that is basically every build defensive-wise. So that's not great. I'm sure that will change too. I don't really know why they put so much energy shield buffing on the tree when they didn't put any life. Maybe they just want us to only have energy shield, I don't know. I don't like having to auto-include delirium in maps because it makes it ugly. It hides how good the game actually looks. I've never been a fan of delirium in PoE 1 either, based on how it looks. Funnily enough, Torchlight Infinite actually has a delirium adjacent mechanic that's basically delirium, and it looks way cooler. It like changes the map into a kind of inverted version of itself and adds some cool effects. Instead of just making it gray, it actually like just changes the color instead of making it gray slop everywhere. But yeah, in an endgame, you want to put delirium on all your maps to get the maximum profit out of it. Don't like the gray. Game looks so good. Why are we covering it with gray fog? I still don't like killing all the rares in a map. Even with the checkpoints they've added, it still doesn't feel good. Some maps don't have great checkpoints, but regardless, like, come on. I don't think they should necessarily do like weird objectives either, like Last Epoch has. I don't really know. They should just I think they should just go back to the PoE 1 system or something, honestly. Or I don't know. But if you ever have to backtrack to kill a rare, I bet a bunch of people will just like log out instead of continuing to play. Gem levels are pretty bad all around, and by that I mean like some skills you don't get until like level 60, which is towards the end of campaign, so you can't even test the character you want to do out until you've already gone through the entire campaign, which is quite a long endeavor for most players, probably. So you can then get there and try the skill. This actually happened to me on my first character. I wanted to go cluster grenade. I mean, luckily you can just pivot to something else, but if you really want a certain skill, and then you do this big thing, 40 hours to get it or whatever for a average player, and then you get it and it sucks, it's like, wow, I waited all this time for that? I don't know. I think in PoE 1 it was better. You have pretty much everything you need by level 30. And then also with skill gems, if you need a lower level gem for like lower stat requirements or something, whatever reason you need a lower level gem, it's annoying to get. You should just like be able to make your gems like any level up to the level of the uncut gem. So if you get like a level 15 one, you can put it up to 15, or you could make it 8, anything from 1 to 15, right? Breaches in maps should drop all the loot at the end of the breach, like breach zones do. I remember a interview with Jonathan. I think it was Jonathan who said it. And very specifically was like, yeah, you won't be picking up splinters one by one Well, alas, you do. They do, in his defense, they do draw multiple splinters sometimes, but I feel like most of the time there's just like hundreds of like if you do a breach juiced map, you're clicking hundreds of times for these splinters. They should just, I mean, breach stones already do it. They should just drop the breach at the end of the breach. I mean, drop the loot at the end of the breach. The most dangerous thing in maps, it's a little bit better with the last patch, is on death explosions. I still think it's the most dangerous thing. I don't know exactly how many of them got changed to disappear when the monster dies, but it's more of an issue of actually maps I don't think are hard enough. Outside of doing juiced breach or like a juiced expedition or something, it's pretty impossible to die. I don't know, I feel like even they did a update and it like buffed density by like 15% base or something. I feel like base maps are still too uninteresting slash easy, I guess. I don't know, not much is really happening in them. Endgame is way too easy in general outside of like bugs that will one-shot you. Character info sheet doesn't give enough info, such as accuracy. Like how big the accuracy range penalty is. I know one of the tooltips has it. It's like 90% reduction at the end of your screen, but I feel like there should be some more numbers in there. There's some other things too. Base light radius is too low. You can't see enough of your minimap, so you'll always miss entrances when like traveling through the campaign or whatever. If you don't actually know exactly where it already is, like you have to get really, really close to the exit to the next zone to actually see it on your minimap. I don't like how layouts get flip-flopped between softcore and hardcore. This is pretty nitpicky, but it's a little weird when I swap from softcore to hardcore. I mean, most people won't have this issue, and then like all the, maybe not all the layouts, but some of the layouts like just get mirrored. Like in Clearfell, the first zone you get into after the Act 1 town, like the Witch in softcore is always like up and to the northeast, and then in hardcore it's somewhere else. Or it might be between SF and non. I'm not sure, but it's a little weird. Minor point. Character collision with monsters is pretty bad. Not necessarily getting like pushed by the monsters themselves. Like I don't really have a problem with that. Like if you got like a huge 20-foot armadillo rolling into you, you should probably get pushed out of the way. But the actual collision system itself sucks and feels buggy. Sometimes the camera will get left behind, there will be rubber banding, it'll be like choppy, not as smooth animation. And in a party too, you like get pushed around by a lot of like other players a lot. It was kind of weird. I don't know what the actual issue is. I think it's like, I don't think it's necessarily too punishing on how far it pushes you, but it's more like it's just buggy. Like sometimes you'll feel like something shouldn't have pushed you so much, but it keeps going. Yeah, it's weird. Bosses are stunned and frozen too easily. I don't think you should be able to crowd control bosses very often. I think maybe what they could do is like windows in a fight that are kind of like almost scripted in, where it gives you an opportunity to stun them. I'm not a huge fan of like constantly stunning or freezing a boss. I mean, if you've invested a metric shit ton into it, then sure. But even like on my first character of the league using like flash grenades, I was stunning bosses in like 3 hits. It was crazy. And then even when they get like you stun them once or heavy stun them once, and then the bar will like, it'll be harder to charge, but I was still just like ripping right through it. Not a huge fan of that. I feel like it kind of ruins the fight. I actually want the boss to fight me. And then on some bosses, actually, I think they like I don't know if the animation canceled or what, but sometimes you'll stun them and then they'll just like instantly be out of it. I don't, it's kind of weird. I don't know if it's their stun threshold is different or something, or if they just have like reduced stun for some reason, but it happens occasionally. I don't really care about that one too much, to be honest. Charms are pretty bad, but at least we can see the charges on them now. I don't know. I feel like there should be some kind of active component to it. Like, I feel like you should be able to switch it, like basically how PoE 1 was, where you can either make it active or you can, but I don't want a currency to do this. I just want it to be a setting. Where you can set it to be active or passive. In passive, they will do the automatic activating, or you can press the button yourself. This way, if you have like a small freeze on you or a stun in a not a dangerous spot, it doesn't waste the charge and you can just like save it, and then when you actually get chain stunned really bad, you can press the button and you're good to go, right? Instead of having all your charges removed by stuff that didn't even matter. Slows feel too punishing on the player. Maybe it's not even about it being punishing. It feels really bad when you get slowed. I feel like all the slow numbers are crazy high compared to PoE 1. And PoE 2 already has a pretty slow base speed outside of like crazy things like Hawa and attribute stacking and a few other builds. Like if you get slowed on a warrior, it is just over. You might as well be frozen. The game could still use more info / help for new players in games. Definitely a step in the right direction, but I feel like they could do a bit more. Personally, I don't really care about that, but I mean they should probably do it. And then finally, last but not least, I don't want to have infinite rerolls on an item, like in PoE 1 where you can alteration orb spam. But having to get a new base every single time you slam an item either doesn't really feel great. I guess you could spam like chaos orbs or something, but I don't know. I wouldn't mind a system where you could like get like 3 scouring orbs on it or something and then it's locked out. But I don't know, something doesn't feel tuned quite right there. Maybe it'll be different eventually, or if there's more crafting systems that are eventually added. As there will almost certainly be more crafting systems added. I mean, like I said, most of the game's problems right now are that we only have like 30% of the release content. And then on top of that, a lot of the content of the game will come from post-release launches with new leagues and new mechanics. But yeah, that is about it for this. Game still is good. I'm still enjoying it. Although I'm kind of like wondering what I want to do at this point. So starting campaign speedruns, I guess. I mean, it kind of makes me lose my mind, but the necessary evil to go faster. But yeah, game's good. It's like a 7 out of 10 or something, I'd say, in terms of enjoyment. Game will easily be 10 out of 10 when they actually add all the stuff. Other than that, that's all I got.